The galaxy was old and its species ancient, but among them one rumor always lingered. Humans were different. They had clawed their way up from a deathworld that would have extinguished any other race before its first sunrise. Their stories were soaked in blood and fire, their myths tangled with shadows of survival. The Council had long dismissed them as reckless predators with fragile bodies, and no place in the hierarchy of the civilized. Yet stories never died. Stories traveled faster than fleets, and one name drifted across the stars like a whisper no one dared to speak too loudly. Baba Yaga. The name was passed from one race to another, often half-jokingly, always tinged with unease. Some claimed she was human myth, a ghost from Earth's folklore who had somehow taken form in the void. Others said she was a commander, a strategist who turned wars into slaughterhouses and enemies into memories. The truth was never confirmed. For the aliens who discussed it in smoky council chambers, it was easier to dismiss her as human exaggeration. After all, humans thrived on fear and legend, turning every scar into a story and every loss into a song. So when a detachment of the Sith's Dominion captured a cluster of human survivors on a mining colony, they expected terror, submission, pleading. They herded the prisoners like livestock, mocked their frail appearances, and laughed at the tension in their eyes. Among them was a scarred human soldier, still breathing though beaten half to death. He whispered a phrase under his breath, not once but several times, like a litany that gave him strength. The Sith's guards dragged him forward and demanded he repeat it loudly, so all could hear. "Don't beat me again," he said through cracked lips. Baba Yaga said. The alien warriors erupted in cruel laughter. The command chamber echoed with mockery. One slapped the prisoner across the face, sneering. Another leaned close, jeering that humans prey to shadows like frightened children. They ridiculed the strange phrase as a sign of weakness. A pitiful superstition clung to by a desperate species. What they did not understand was that the words were not prayer. They were warning. The soldier spat blood and told them the story, even as they mocked him further. He told them that Baba Yaga was not a god, not a myth, but something worse. She was human memory made flesh, delivering some of every lesson carved into humanity through war, famine, and despair. She was a shadow waiting in every forest, the mother of vengeance, the commander who came only when enemies pushed too far. When he said the words, he was not begging. He was remembering. The aliens only laughed harder. They laughed because they had never lived on Earth. They had never felt hunger gnawing until madness set in, never faced predators faster and stronger than themselves, never seen generations crushed and yet somehow rise again fiercer than before. They saw fragile bodies and thought fragility meant weakness. They saw scars and thought scars meant defeat. They did not understand scars were proof of survival, and survival was humanity's only true religion. The humans had been written off by the Council centuries ago as unpredictable, unfit for diplomacy. But the Council did not erase memory. Memory stayed, buried like embers under ash. And in the dark corners of the galaxy, the name Baba Yaga smoldered. It was whispered by mercenaries who swore they had seen human fleets tear through entire armadas in less time than it took to order a retreat. It was muttered by smugglers who claimed to have found wreckage fields where no survivors remained. Only fragments of ships sliced clean by weapons they couldn't understand. The Sith's Dominion dismissed such tales as exaggerations. They mocked humans as savage storytellers who invented monsters to disguise their own insignificance. Yet in mocking, they ignored one of the oldest truths of warfare. Humans lied, but they also told the truth at the same time. They wrapped it in legend, in song, in the kinds of phrases that lingered in memory long after the speaker was dead. The captured soldier repeated the phrase again, his voice hoarse. "Don't beat me again," Baba Yaga said. The alien struck him once more, demanding to know who she was. He smiled through broken teeth. He told them she was the last face you saw before silence, the hand that reached through the dark to end you. They didn't understand. They thought it bravado. They thought fear could be mocked away. But when the Dominion intercepted human transmissions during interrogation, they found fragments of coded messages. Their analysts mocked the content as crude encryption, little more than outdated wartime chatter. Yet they could not help but notice that the same name repeated again and again, hidden in patterns, Baba Yaga. They dismissed it as psychological conditioning, some trick to frighten enemies. They did not realize it was a signal. The prisoner died in their custody, but his words lingered like poison. The soldiers repeated them among themselves as a joke. Officers mocked the name during their strategy meetings. Reports of increased human fleet movements were ignored, dismissed as meaningless posturing. The Dominion's commanders laughed openly, reassuring themselves that no human force could ever challenge their technological superiority. After all, they possessed energy lances capable of carving moons, shields that repelled plasma fire, drones that could fight without rest. Against such power, what could fragile humans do? They didn't understand that humans had never fought wars with superior technology. From the beginning, humans fought with less, with worse, with nothing at all, and won because they refused to stop. The Dominion looked for logic, for reason, for statistics. Humanity offered them only inevitability. While the aliens congratulated themselves on their cleverness, far across the void a fleet stirred. Old ships, patched with scars and bristling with crude weapons, powered up in silence. To the Dominion, such vessels would appear outdated, relics from forgotten skirmishes. To those who understood, they were the black ships, the ones that sailed without warning, the ones that carried Baba Yaga's mark. Their drives burned hotter than logic allowed. Their weapons fired faster than physics accounted for. They did not exist to negotiate. They existed to answer laughter with silence. The Dominion prepared to transport their human captives deeper into their territory. Their commanders laughed as they signed the order. They did not notice the coded responses echoing through the stars, answers to the whispers they had mocked. They did not realize that mocking the legend was the same as summoning it. They had spoken the words, and the words had listened. In their arrogance, they gave the galaxy the most dangerous gift imaginable. They reminded humanity why Baba Yaga existed. The prisoner's last whisper was not forgotten. Across encrypted channels, across forgotten relays hidden in asteroid belts and derelict stations, a single phrase repeated in silence. Always the same, always waiting. "Don't beat me again," Baba Yaga said. And somewhere, deep in the dark, she answered. The Dominion ships were confident when the human signatures first appeared on their scanners. The readings suggested outdated hulls, vessels that looked more like patched wrecks than war machines. Commanders sneered, convinced these were remnants of some desperate militia. Their fleet stretched across the system like a net, shimmering with power and arrogance, every ship broadcasting victory before a shot had been fired. To them, the humans were gnats buzzing in the dark, annoying but harmless. The first mistake was assuming the ships were primitive because of their scars. The second was thinking scars meant weakness. Scars were survival written into steel. Each mark was proof the vessel had been in battle and had not died. When the human fleet arrived, silence followed. No messages, no challenges, no declarations of war. Just silence. The Dominion laughed at that too, imagining that humans lacked the courage to speak. They did not realize silence was strategy. Silence was a scream before the cut. The Sith's flagship broadcast a demand: surrender or die. No answer came. Instead, Dominion sensors began failing. At first, minor glitches, dismissed as interference. Then larger anomalies, entire targeting arrays shorting out without warning. The engineers claimed the human ships were broadcasting jamming signals beyond anything they'd ever seen, but even that seemed too simple. Some systems failed without explanation, as though the ships themselves had forgotten how to function. Panic did not spread immediately. The Sithis were a proud people, convinced of their superiority. Commanders mocked their own officers for worrying, ordered weapons charged, demanded volleys fired into the void. But when the volleys vanished into the darkness without hitting anything, unease began to creep into their voices. Human ships moved impossibly fast, not with advanced technology, but with a kind of ruthless disregard for physics. They burned engines longer than any safety protocol should allow, turned in ways no vessel their size had any right to. It was not elegance. It was brutality in motion, machines driven beyond their limits, crews who simply did not care if they lived so long as the enemy died first. Then she spoke. Baba Yaga's voice cut across every channel at once. translated perfectly into every Dominion tongue. Cold and quiet as a blade sliding free of a chief, she said only 2 words. "You laughed." The silence after those words was heavier than any bombardment. Across Dominion bridges, soldiers shifted uneasily. Some commanders tried to mock the broadcast, but their voices cracked. They felt the weight of something older than strategy, older than war itself. They felt inevitability. The human fleet struck with precision, so ruthless it bordered on madness. Ships surged forward, weapons blazing with relentless fury. Dominion shields that should have withstood hours of bombardment cracked in seconds. Plasma cut across armored hulls like paper. Fighters swarmed in formations that made no sense to alien tacticians, breaking apart only to slam together again in new patterns, overwhelming every attempt at defense. It was not a battle. It was a massacre unfolding with mathematical certainty. The Dominion had the advantage in numbers, in raw technology, in every measurable category. Yet none of it mattered. Their tactics were predictable, their reliance on superiority a weakness. Humans exploited every hesitation, every assumption, every rule the Dominion thought inviolable. In 7 minutes, the first Dominion battle group ceased to exist. Wreckage drifted where hundreds of ships had been. Emergency channels screamed with chaos, begging for orders, but the orders never came. Commanders were dead, bridges silent, fleets broken. In those minutes, the Dominion learned why humanity was feared. It was not their strength, not their technology, not even their ruthlessness. It was their refusal to recognize limits. Where others saw physics, humans saw challenges to be broken. Where others obeyed fear, humans turned into fuel. Every maneuver was impossible, yet executed with perfect precision. Every strike defied logic, yet landed with devastating accuracy. They had been underestimated, and underestimation was a Dominion's death sentence. The survivors tried to flee, broadcasting desperate calls for reinforcements. Their voices carried terror that no jamming could silence. Across the system, word spread Baba Yaga had come. Some officers begged allies to join the fight. Others begged for negotiation. But Baba Yaga ignored every plea. Her fleet advanced, relentless, silent except for the sound of destruction. The Dominion began to realize the war was not about territory, not about resources, not even about revenge in the ordinary sense. It was memory given form. Humanity did not strike because they wanted victory. They struck because their enemies had mocked them. Laughter had been the spark, and now silence would be the ash. The Dominion tried to regroup, forming defensive lines, focusing fire on the largest of the human ships. But even as they concentrated every weapon on a single target, that target absorbed the fury and kept coming. Fire tore across its hull, plating burned away. But the vessel advanced without pause, weapons blazing until Dominion lines fractured again. It was not the ship they feared. It was a crew inside, humans who fought as though already dead, unwilling to stop until every enemy lay broken. Baba Yaga's fleet did not gloat, did not mock, did not speak again. The humans killed in silence, efficient and merciless. Dominion soldiers found themselves whispering the name under their breath, no longer mocking but trembling. Baba Yaga was no longer myth, no longer rumor. She was here, and she was real. Minutes stretched like hours as ship after ship was erased from existence. Entire wings of Dominion fighters disappeared in seconds, annihilated by swarms of human craft that moved like predators tasting blood. Every second, every heartbeat, more Dominion lives were extinguished. The calculations were undeniable. Survival was impossible. Yet still, some commanders refused to accept defeat. They broadcast challenges, insults, desperate threats. Each was met with the same reply: silence followed by annihilation. The galaxy would later debate how many died in those 7 minutes. Some said hundreds of thousands. Others said millions. The numbers did not matter. What mattered was the message. Humanity had returned to the stage of galactic war, and they had chosen to do so through Baba Yaga. Her legend had not been exaggeration. It had been understatement. By the end of the engagement, Dominion forces were shattered beyond recognition. The The survivors drifted in ruined vessels, calms filled with static and despair. They begged for mercy, offered surrender, promised tribute. Baba Yaga's fleet did not respond. The humans had no interest in prisoners, no patience for bargains. Those who mocked humanity would not be spared. The 7 minutes ended, and with them, an empire's illusion of invincibility.